Okay. I hope you're doing well. I want to talk about contextualizing Esther. Contextualizing Queen Esther. So I got up a couple mornings ago and I was reading this 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 Bible app, one of the Bible apps that has different plans, and they were talking about Queen Esther. And I was just kind of reading it because it was about royals, and you know I'm on the righteous royal and ratchet path. It was ratchet first, declared righteous, trying to live like a true royal as it is outlined in scripture. But I was reading about the royals and I came into the story of Queen Esther and something clicked. It's almost as if the spirit dropped into my spirit that Esther, such a time as this, was not about her. So you know how you go into churches and you hear, at such a time as this, maybe you were coming into the kingdom for such a time as this. And so then people read it or interpret it as, maybe I'm supposed to be the next great prophetess, or maybe I'm supposed to be the next great speaker, or maybe it's my time to be the next great person in the body. But at such a time as this, if we contextualize it, it meant that this was such a time for Esther, Queen Esther, to stand in line to save her people. Esther came into the kingdom when Mordecai was talking to her. He said, maybe you came into this role for such a time as this to save your people. Mordecai had been fasting. He had had sackcloth. He had been mourning. He had been around the king's domain. He was trying to get their attention because the decree was to destroy the people, to destroy the Jewish race at that time. And Mordecai would not stand for it. And Mordecai was so loud that Esther was ignoring him. See, we talk about a good trouble, but there are a lot of people that just don't want to be bothered. I just want to stay in my palace. I just want to stay in my house. I'm just going to let this pass. But you know what Mordecai said to Esther? He said, don't think it's not going to hit you. See, this is the thing, y'all, that when we see a group of people destroyed, we think that's just them. But you know, there's a poem, and in that poem it talks about, he came for them first. Then they came for them first. Then they came for this first. Now they come for me. But I thought about Esther, and I thought if we could have some current Esthers, some women who will arise and dedicate themselves to preventing genocides in their families, genocides in their communities, genocides in their workplaces. That's what it meant by at such a time as this. Esther's arise to save communities. Esther arrived to save a nation. Esther's arrived to save their people. Esther's don't arrive for themselves. Esther's arrived to serve. So when you contextualize Esther, and Esther's role in history, it was a role to prevent her people from experiencing genocide. See, there's a spirit of Haman in the land. We're always talking about Jezebel. My God, the church loves Jezebel. And I mean God, G-A-W-D, not, but we love Jezebel. But an old preacher said you can't have a Jezebel without an Ahab, but that's another story. You can't have that kind of woman without a weak man, but that's another story. But Esther was fighting Haman. Haman was a governmental authority who meant that he was going to destroy people. He didn't like them. Just didn't like them. And sometimes you have people that come into history that don't like certain people. But Lord, if we could ever have Esther's. See, Esther represents a paradigm shift of everyday activism, almost like Amos. I'm going to talk about Amos another day. When you don't have to have the title to do the work. You don't have to have the title to see that there's a need. And you don't have to have a title or even the pedigree for God to work with you. A lot of times God likes to work with people without pedigree because he gets the glory. Yeah, because he gets the glory. But if we were to contextualize Esther and not keep going around saying this meant this, this meant this meant that, and if we were to look directly in Scripture, we would see that Esther's arrived to protect their people and to keep people from being destroyed. Lord, I pray, let Esther's arrive.